Just to give a quick introduction, like Ahmed was saying, is I'm currently a third-year undergrad at the University of Washington, and I've been working with Professor Amy Zhang on this project, as well as Tani Mitra and Purna Juneja. And yeah, I've been working on this since around the beginning of fall, so it's been a couple months now, and we're hoping to wrap it up around the end of this year. So first, I'm going to go through some brief background information to share some of the motivations behind the goals for this project. So when Dr. Zhang and I started working on this project, our goal was to take a user-centered approach to address credibility. We wanted to use credibility signals such as page structure, tone of writing, and placement of citations within Wikipedia as an example for how Wikipedia can influence content elsewhere on the web. So to start addressing how and where we could use Wikipedia as a tool for credibility, we started by looking at areas being manipulated and targeted for misinformation. One of these areas are data voids, which is where media manipulators take advantage of search algorithms to lead users to primed contents. Essentially, they're using the faults of SEO to their advantage. A good example of a data void is an event like the Sutherland Springs shooting. When the event first occurred, an emergency alert was sent out to all nearby residents, citing the small town in Texas. At the time, there was little about the town on the web, so a Google search would return what is referred to as like placeholder content, like population data and weather forecasts. This media is like super easy to surpass in relevancy, so it is simple for someone with bad intentions to surpass these search results with their own content. The danger of this void comes from the high number of searchers in the aftermath of an event like this. However, these voids, as an example, tend to resolve themselves quickly as mainstream media starts to catch up. So as a way to combat misinformation and data voids, I started looking into the research around lateral reading. Lateral reading is the process of checking the credibility of a source across multiple sites and sources. In his book, Web Literacy for Student Fact Checkers, Mike Caulfield shares that lateral readers gain a better understanding as to whether to trust the facts and analysis presented to them. And then one of the papers we also looked at for this project is Annabelle Rothschild's How the Interplay of Google and Wikipedia Affects Perceptions of Online News Sources. For this project, they researched the credibility and implicit trust college students put into the ranking system on Google and how the knowledge panel shown helped with credibility. So due to the format of search engines, the new methods people are using to find information, and the inconsistent use and appearance of credibility signals, it is impossible to completely prevent misinformation from finding its way through. It would be, for example, it would be hard to create a centralized system for identifying and tracking data voids, and even harder to predict what the next destructive data void would be, although this would be an interesting project for future work. In the case of the WikiUX project, we decided to switch the viewpoint to the information seekers themselves. So instead of finding like a permanent band-aid for each case of misinformation, it becomes more important for users to be able to identify the credibility of the source itself, essentially using tools like lateral reading. To focus the direction of this project more, we identified three main leverage points where Wikipedia intersects with credibility, both on Wikipedia and elsewhere on the web. One of these is looking at Wikipedia pages themselves and how the format could be changed to increase accountability and credibility. Kevin was talking about this a little earlier with the Sight Unseen project. A possible project we considered stemming from this is improving how sources are handled and the look on each page. Currently, as Kevin was talking about, the sources of a Wikipedia page look a little bit like a scary maze of information. While information is generally well cited and organized, the huge section of small text can definitely be intimidating to broach for further reading material. Another leverage point is how Wikipedia appears elsewhere on the web, specifically on search engines. For this direction, we'd look kind of more at how credibility is addressed directly on those search engines and how Wikipedia is integrated into search results. We broadened the concept to include possible new treatments of knowledge panels, kind of stemming from the research that's been done already, like the paper I mentioned by Annabelle Rothschild. The third point we found and the path we decided to take relates to the largely unexplored territory of credibility in video format and how Wikipedia can be integrated there. So to give some greater depth on the background of this project, I'm going to expand a little more on these ideas. So with the rise of social media, many people are turning towards platforms like YouTube as their primary source of information. However, these platforms have become easy targets for misinformation campaigns. Currently, Wikipedia already plays a part in credibility on YouTube. For example, YouTube will link to Wikipedia pages on videos that the company deems to either be a significant conspiracy or when a news channel is funded by a government source. While this is definitely a start in the direction of credibility, there's still a lot more work to be done. So some of the questions around credibility on a video sharing platform like YouTube come from the wide base of content creators. On a typical Google search for topic, the leading sources are usually mainstream media companies. However, on YouTube, the content creator focus leads to greater inconsistency in search results, especially in terms of credibility. So we're also looking towards Wikipedia as a key example in the space of credibility signals, as it has both a culture of collaborative citations and a widespread use on the web as an information source. And then third, and the most important in the context of this project, is that there's no standard way for creators to display credibility factors or cite their sources on YouTube, or in general for a video format. Many creators have turned to workarounds to citing their sources or simply foregoing citations altogether. For example, you can see some YouTubers listing their sources in the description of the video, like in this case. The implications of this are that a viewer is unable to quickly identify the credibility of the information in a video without cross-referencing other places on the web or performing lateral reading practices. Currently, the only standardized information displayed about a channel is its display name, profile picture, subscriber count, and occasionally a verification indicator. The verification indicator in particular can be misleading as it only indicates whether a channel is who they claim to be and not anything about the credibility of them as a source. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about our current work on this project. As I mentioned earlier, this project is researching and focusing on developing citations for YouTube videos. Video citations specifically will allow creators to display credibility within individual videos and allow viewers to conduct lateral reading with more ease. Citations specific to this format could also take on the advantages of social media platforms, specifically in user ratings and collaborative creation of citations, which we're exploring more. So through initial literature review, we explored the question of what a standardized citation within a video would look like and what type of videos would specifically benefit from citations. As I mentioned earlier, we want to lean on Wikipedia as an example. When looking at Wikipedia, we started to think about the process of how citations could be added, because we do want to bring a lot of the practices that Wikipedia already has and bring them onto this, but we also don't want to have to completely replicate the format for Wikipedia citations within YouTube. So one of the exciting possibilities that comes from this is the social aspect of YouTube viewer communities. People already come together on YouTube to produce closed captioning and translations, as well as forming communities around creators in the comment sections. So essentially, we can take advantage of how that works and possibly have some kind of style of crowdsourced citations. So thinking about the wider context of this project outside of misinformation, citations would also allow creators who want to create informative and credible videos a chance to easily display their sources. So just a little update about where we're at. So far, I've been working on the initial information collection. We would like to start with a survey study, and I've put some examples of the types of questions we'll be asking on this slide. The purpose of the study is to mainly get a baseline for how citations could be used and where they could be useful on YouTube. And then I'm also currently working on an interview style study to help get some more detailed information on how people address credibility signals on YouTube and some design choices around citations. We would actually love it if people here today would like to participate, as a lot of the people here have some more background on misinformation and are already kind of informed about that. So I have my email address here, as well as I put it on I think there's a Miro board for this presentation or this session. So feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to participate or have any questions around that. And then other than that, we'll be continuing this project into a design phase study shortly before eventually conducting a final user study with our prototype. Right.